Que pasa, mi amigos? It's Nima here, and I want to talk about Triangle Strategy, a game that recently had a demo release for it at the latest Nintendo Direct, and it allowed us to play about the first three chapters of the game. What is nice is you can save it and it will port over to the full game when it comes out. But I decided that this was a game that I'm really interested in, and I figured a lot of other people were as well, so I wanted to take a closer look at it. And I'll say this, like, for the most part, there's a lot of reading. It's very dialogue heavy, and I think it has to. In so many of these kind of like role playing games, especially ones that kind of focus on tactical aspects of it, they are pretty dialogue heavy, and there's a lot of narrative into it. And I think you kind of have to have that going into it, because this game focuses on three houses, and look at them as like three different countries that all have some sort of unique resource that the other country wants. This game is very political, really focusing on diplomacy as well as an unfettered war that is most likely going to happen soon. But the main focus of at least the first three chapters is Glenbrook, which is a kingdom located near multiple waterways, which facilitate more than just your natural need of water, irrigation and crops, but also transportation and the ability to have fresh markets. And capitalism in general is kind of based upon your ability to move goods from one place to another. And at that point in time, going through riverways was a much faster way than trying to drag a giant cart with with horses and you having to deal with highwaymen and things of that nature. So that's their kind of big claim to fame. And then you have Aspfrost, which Aspfrost is it's more like their mining is their big thing. They have a lot of like resources in that regard. Iron is the big one that they mention a lot in the first two chapters, and then you also have Hyzat. Now Hyzat is big in salt. Like that's their claim to fame. They basically live in a very desert type area, but there is a giant lake essentially that has a ton of salt, and so they get salt from there and mine salt. But you're, as far as I can tell, you play the main character of Serenoa, which, okay, that's one thing. Before we go further, let me just say this. Aside from the political back and forth and everything else, the names of these characters, and I know a lot of, especially Square Enix games and JRPGs, they have weird names, but this one has like uniquely weird names. But yes, your main character is Serenoa, and you stumble upon your bride to be, which you haven't met yet. Her name is Frederica. You see what I'm saying? Names here. But at the time, she's coming to visit you on this big kind of festival day. There's a banquet, and the whole thing is they're going to sign in another allegiance between the three houses that will give them more prosperity and give them a direction of where they're going to go, because at this time they're also deciding to do like this joint mining expedition, so that all three houses, three countries, whatever you want to call them, can all enjoy the same prosperity and the same goods. Well, as this kind of happens, again, it is very heavy on the narrative and what side each one is playing off each other. But essentially, early on in this, Frederica is met with a bunch of bandits, and this is kind of like your first tutorial into the game, and teaches you how to fight and things of that nature. And so you have your character, Serenoa, who is like the basic warrior style, and then you have Frederica, and she's a mage, a pyromancer, Galia, who is your she's your healer, if you will, and then Roland, who is a lancer. And so it kind of just goes on through. It's a really easy fight, but it teaches you all the aspects of the basics of fighting. And from there, the game does kind of take off. And again, it's a lot of narrative, but there is some other cool aspects about this game that I'm really interested in. Number one, I'm used to these kind of games being, you have very little control. only in the fights does it seem like you can control your characters. Well, this one doesn't. This actually has a mode where you can go around and talk to people, and you can also get little other quests from this route where you're just kind of roaming around town. Takes me more into the Octopath Travelers kind of aspect to the game. So it is like a nice marriage, if you will, between Octopath Travelers and Triangle Project. uh, Triangle Strategy. Sorry, but I really did enjoy everything that I played with it, and I'm excited to play it again. And I will say that I mentioned that it was like 15 hours, and I was way off on that. I got really bad information, but it is longer than just like a couple hours. It took me like an entire day. Now, part of it is I reread everything because there really is a lot of information in there, and you don't want to just read it really quickly, wait for a month, because we've got until the 18th of March before we're going to be able to play the game in full, and then jump back into it, and you're going to forget everything. So if you're like me, you spent hours going through the first three chapters. You don't want to do that again, but you also want to remember everything. But I definitely think, like, if you're interested in the game, you should definitely download the demo. But like I said, be warned, there is a lot of reading. It does get pretty political, pretty heavy. And in just, like, if you're into diplomacy, there are a lot of moments in this game that I can tell have the opportunity to be very Game of Thrones, if you will. You know, you have some characters that you can already tell a little bit shady. Yeah, don't turn your back on them. There's a lot of that in there. Going into the graphics real quick, I will say that this game does remind me of Octopath Travelers, but it right now doesn't look as pretty. And I will say, like, even Live Alive in that trailer looked a bit better. It's not hideous by any stretch of the means, but it's just I'm guessing there's so many other parts of it that are needing to consume memory for other things, and the length of the game and the mechanics and whatever. There wasn't a whole lot that was applied to graphics. Again, this still looks fine. Like, it's definitely serviceable. At some points, it does look really good, but not exactly as good as Octopath Travelers. And on the combat aspect, you know, it's Square Enix. It's going to give you that depth, customization, growth, all of those things that they are so good at doing. I'm very much in the style of, like, Final Fantasy Tactics and that strategy tactics combat system. Which is, like, that's what I'm here for. Like, I'm very excited for that. But anyway, I'm kind of curious what your guys' thoughts are. If you're going to pick it up, have you played it? Like I said, I definitely recommend checking it out if you're even a little bit interested in. Look, a lot of reading, but the combat's great. And honestly, the writing is really good as well. And voice acting. Which is really cool because that also helps you just kind of get enthralled in the game. Is that awesome voice acting? You're not, you know, you're not guessing uncertain names or, inflections. But anyway, yeah, let me know what you guys think, or if you've played it, if you're going to get it, or if you're waiting until it drops before you play, which I respect that too, because, yeah, it's going to be hard to just have the first three chapters and then trying to remember everything in like 4 weeks. But anyway, guys, thanks a lot. Have a great day.